15 years in Hollywood, no one in Hollywood has a memory of going to a sold-out Kevin Hart show, there being a line for him ever getting a standing ovation at any comedy club. Heard of a comedian that came to LA, and in his first year in LA, he had his own sitcom on network television and had his own movie called Soul Plane that he was leading? No, we've never heard of that before that person or since that person. What do you think a plant?
It started with one simple interview clip, but it wasn't just another celebrity soundbite. Eddie Murphy, a man who rarely comments on anyone, had finally broken his silence, and what he said made the whole comedy world freeze. Because when Eddie speaks, people listen. He's comedy royalty, a man who's seen legends rise and fall. So when he mentioned a moment where Katt Williams shook Kevin Hart, the internet lost its mind. Was it shade, a confession, or something deeper? A moment that pulled back the curtain on how Hollywood really works. That's what we're breaking down today. Because this wasn't just another feud, it was a cultural moment. One that showed the fine line between being famous and being real. Eddie's words reignited a debate that's been burning quietly for years about who's truly respected in the comedy game and who's been manufactured by Hollywood. But before we dive into what Eddie really meant, you need to understand the weight of that moment and why every comedian in the industry felt it.
I broke your stand-up box office record.
What record did he break?
He said he broke some record of your box office sales for stand-up.
I don't know. Where did he...
Are we ever going to see you on stage again doing stand-up?
I'm going to do it again because I got to break Kevin's new record. I got to get back on the stage because this new record that Kevin got, I got to have it back.
That right there, that's where the tension began. Eddie wasn't just talking about Kevin's success, he was questioning its origin, because in the world of comedy, nobody rises that fast without people asking questions. Katt Williams has said it before, real success comes from pain, from grind, from scars, and when a man goes from open mics to movie deals in a single year, the whispers start. To Eddie, it wasn't hate, it was confusion. The timeline didn't make sense, at least not to those who had clawed their way up one gig at a time. That's why he called it an intense moment, because Katt didn't just challenge Kevin's talent, he challenged the system that made Kevin a star. Eddie's tone said it all. He wasn't mocking, he was observing, like a man who's seen how the game gets played behind the cameras. And the question that hung in the air was this: did Kevin earn his crown, or was it handed to him?
I got a show at your hometown in Philly. I'm gonna take my special there. On that stage, we can put whatever you want. A full-court basketball court, a box.
When Eddie dropped that word, plant, it hit like a lightning strike. Because in Hollywood, being called a plant isn't just an insult, it's an accusation. It means someone didn't rise through struggle, they were placed there. Katt's been hinting at this for years, that some comedians get fast-tracked, while others get blacklisted. And Eddie mentioning it publicly? That was a signal. It meant people at the top had noticed the same thing fans had been whispering about online. To the audience, this was more than just comedy drama. It was a power struggle, a real-life heavyweight bout between authenticity and industry control. Eddie described it like two titans finally locking eyes. Katt, the raw and unfiltered voice of the people. Kevin, the polished face of corporate comedy. And when those two forces collide, one fueled by truth, the other by branding, something has to break. Visual cue, dramatic slow-motion shot. Split frame of Katt laughing versus Kevin smiling on red carpet. Visual cue, SFX, low bass rumble builds tension. Visual cue, flash quick fan tweets. Katt keeping it real. Kevin sold out? That's why the internet couldn't look away. Because this wasn't just entertainment, it was a mirror. And for the first time, Eddie Murphy was holding it up for everyone to see.
Do you think a plant is? Maybe people don't understand the definitions of these words.
That's the part people missed. Eddie wasn't describing a fight, he was describing a shift. A split-second moment when Kevin Hart, the face of modern comedy, was forced to stop smiling. Because what Katt said that day wasn't just shade, it was surgical. It pierced through the Hollywood polish, straight into Kevin's foundation. You could feel the temperature in the room drop. Even people who'd seen it all went quiet. Eddie said it best. Katt didn't humiliate Kevin, he reminded him. Reminded him that fame without authenticity is just noise. And in that reminder, Kevin flinched. That's what made it legendary. Because sometimes the loudest blows in Hollywood don't come from fists, they come from truth. And for once, Kevin couldn't joke his way out. He had to sit with it. Eddie said that silence spoke louder than any punchline. But what exactly did Katt say that shook him like that? The answer to that question would turn an industry rumor into a cultural wake-up call.
Yeah, we want to thank you. Come here. Don't sit on the bed at night. No homo. No, just don't get close to the bed. Don't get close. But it's just like, yo, we want to thank you for hosting the thing, man. It's been a pleasure. You didn't have to do it, and you did it.
No, I definitely didn't have to do it. I definitely.
Hey, Kev, when you hosted for Diddy, did you catch any baby oil?
When I hosted for Diddy?
Yeah. Nah?
You asking the wrong person the wrong.
And right there, that's the dagger. Because in comedy, breaking records isn't just about numbers. It's about legacy. When Katt threw that line, "I broke your record," it wasn't a brag. It was a declaration. Kevin's built an empire on consistency, film after film, tour after tour, deal after deal. But Katt, he built his on chaos, controversy, and truth. So when Eddie replayed that moment, he wasn't just retelling gossip. He was describing the exact second the illusion of Hollywood perfection cracked. Because that one question, what record did he break, was more than sarcasm. It was a challenge to Kevin's entire narrative. How much of his success was real audience love, and how much was corporate amplification? Eddie said you could feel the tension ripple through the room. This wasn't jealousy. It was a reminder that the scoreboard in Hollywood doesn't measure authenticity. And for a brief moment, Kevin had to wonder if all that success still meant he had the people. That's when Eddie knew this wasn't just comedian versus comedian. It was the system versus the soul.
That there's no gatekeepers, but we keep seeing the same people open the gate. Didn't Kevin open the gate and let Tiffany in? Ain't he now opening it up for... Already had his deals when he got here. Have we heard of a comedian that came to LA and in his first year in LA he had his own sitcom on network television and had his own movie called Soul Plane that he was leading? 10 years in Hollywood, no one in Hollywood has a memory of going to a sold-out Kevin Hart show, there being a line for him ever getting a standing ovation at any comedy club.
Ever been the humble guy? I have time to not be humble today. I have time to fact check everything he said because the world of Katt Williams is a fiction.
Eddie said it like he was describing a movie scene. Kevin, spotless in his designer suit, surrounded by cameras and contracts. And Katt, walking in with nothing but a cigarette, a stare, and a truth nobody else dared to speak. That's what makes Katt dangerous. He has nothing to protect. No image, no agenda, no leash. When he talks, people get uncomfortable. Because he doesn't speak like someone playing the game. He speaks like someone who's already walked away from it. Eddie said that night was strange, one of those Hollywood gatherings where everyone wears a smile but nobody feels safe. And in that fake laughter, Katt's words landed like thunder. It was a flip. One moment everyone's laughing. The next, you could hear the air change. Eddie said Katt didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His energy alone was enough to shift the entire room. That's when Eddie realized this wasn't about jokes anymore. It was about truth, and who could stand under its weight without flinching.
I was actually one of those comedians that said, no, I wouldn't wear a dress. There's no way.
Dave Chappelle and I said that they tried to make him wear a dress.
You have to have boundaries. You have to have limits that you refuse to cross. I know what they are. You got to know that you're a brand. You need to protect your brand at all times. And then when proposed with the opportunity of what I felt was funny, nobody made Martin put on a dress and nobody made Tyler Perry. It was a
Goofball.
right.
Or do you think that was already a script and they handed it?
Yeah. The water was deeper though.
Came up. Flame was gone. At that time, I was in panic. I had asthma.
That line hit different. It wasn't about who was funnier. It was about who was freer. Because in a town where everyone's told what to say, Katt was the only one bold enough to sound unscripted. Kevin had brands to please, studios to satisfy, and a career built on being universally liked. But Katt, he's powered by rebellion. He says what people whisper when the cameras are off. Eddie said you could see Kevin's body language shift. Like he suddenly realized he was playing chess with someone who'd already burned the board. That's the thing about authenticity. It doesn't need approval. It just needs a moment to remind everyone who really controls the room. And that night, it wasn't the cameras. It wasn't the studio reps. It wasn't the $1,000,000 contracts. It was Katt Williams. Eddie said after that moment, even the laughter felt different. Like people weren't laughing with Kevin anymore. They were laughing around him. It's almost like that silence said more than any interview ever could, because when the cameras stopped rolling and the lights dimmed, the energy around them shifted. People started noticing who wasn't laughing anymore, who stopped showing up, and who suddenly had nothing to say. That's when things started to feel off, like everyone was waiting for someone to make the next move. Behind the scenes, a lot of those same people who used to be loud in their support went quiet. Some called it respect, others saw it as fear. But either way, that silence became the story. Because in this world, not saying something is a statement on its own. And when a few close voices finally did speak, they made it clear something had been brewing for a while. See, this wasn't some overnight fallout. It was tension building brick by brick through subtle interviews, side comments, and loyalty tests disguised as jokes. Every time one of them threw shade, the audience turned into detectives. Every pause, every look, every Instagram caption was studied like evidence. And when a clip surfaced showing one of them looking uncomfortable while the other laughed, that was all it took for fans to claim, "It's over." That's when speculation turned into confirmation. No one said the words, but everyone could feel the distance. Because when two people who once had perfect chemistry start acting like strangers, the audience feels that cold air instantly. But the real twist came later, when one of them decided to break the silence, not with words, but with timing, a simple post, a moment, and everyone watching knew exactly what it meant. He didn't tag anyone, didn't mention a name, but the caption? It hit like a direct shot. It was one of those posts that you could only understand if you'd been watching closely, and the internet had been watching every second. People started connecting dots. The comments exploded. He's talking about him. That's shade. That's payback. But instead of denying it, he doubled down, just by staying silent. That's when you know the message landed exactly where it was supposed to. And that's where this story really took a turn. Because once pride enters the room, nothing ever goes back to normal. The interviews that followed got colder, the jokes stopped sounding playful, and the mutual respect that once defined them turned into something else. Something you could hear in the pauses, feel in the tone, and read between every headline. And people started asking, was this all just entertainment? Or had it crossed the line into something personal? That's when the backlash started to form. The same fans who cheered their connection now picked sides, one camp calling out betrayal, the other defending loyalty. And in the middle of it all, the silence of one man who refused to explain himself. But here's the thing, silence can protect you for a while, until the narrative starts forming without you. Once that happens, you lose control of your own story. And that's exactly what began to unfold here. The internet filled in the blanks with theories, conspiracies, and timelines that made the situation look worse by the day. And the more he ignored it, the louder the noise became. But deep down, those who really knew the game could see what was happening. This wasn't just about ego. It was about image, money, and survival. Because in this industry, your name isn't just your reputation, it's your currency. So when someone threatens that, even with a whisper, it's war. Quiet, strategic, psychological war. And that's what made the next move so cold. He waited, bided his time, then chose the perfect moment to respond. Not in anger, not in interviews, but in action. A single unfollow, a small click that sent shockwaves through an entire fan base. Instantly, headlines dropped. He unfollowed him. They're done. No coming back from this. And that's when the narrative flipped for good. Suddenly it wasn't speculation anymore. It was confirmation. That one click became the moment the internet had been waiting for. But beneath all the noise, the real question lingered. Was it personal or was it business? Because sometimes in this industry, the lines between friendship and PR blur beyond recognition. And when that happens, everyone loses something. People started revisiting old clips, dissecting them frame by frame, trying to pinpoint the exact moment things fell apart. And the deeper they looked, the clearer it became. The signs were always there. Little reactions, awkward silences, forced smiles, moments that didn't seem important back then, now looked like red flags in hindsight. And as the story unfolded, what once looked like a friendship started to feel like a rivalry wrapped in politeness. That's when people began to realize maybe it was never as solid as it looked. Maybe it was built on convenience, timing, and shared spotlight. Because when the spotlight shifts, so do loyalties. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. A quiet unraveling of what used to be a powerhouse bond. But it's not just about two people falling out. It's about what that fallout reveals about this entire industry, where alliances are temporary and loyalty expires the second your name stops trending. So as the dust settles and both sides move differently, the world's left wondering, what really broke the bond? Was it betrayal, competition, or just the inevitable truth that in this game, even the closest ones eventually turn distant? Do you think it was personal or just business? And don't go anywhere. Click the next video you see on your screen for even more juicy celebrity chaos, betrayals, and stories Hollywood doesn't want you to know. See you in the next one.